Your financial fears are holding you back from the life that you should be living. And I know this because 10 years ago, I couldn't care less about my finances. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had tens of thousands of dollars of debt, and I had no goals except for filling up my calendar on the weekend with fun plans. I had no future goals. Since then, I have paid off that 10,000 the tens of thousands of dollars in debt. And since then, I have become a net worth millionaire in 2024. And it all started by facing the demon. And I'm sure that's why you clicked on this video today. You have a demon in your head about your finances, and that's the reason why you haven't started or you're not continuing or something. So this video is really aimed at you to try and squash any limiting beliefs you have on this and kind of change your mindset. Share my story about how I progressed from doing literally nothing with my finances to where I am today. And now I'm helping other people with their personal finances. Like I'm literally coaching people. I've been an accountant for over 10 years. I have a free community designed to do all this, and we're going to get into that in a little later. But I want to first start with a few different time frames of the things you're not thinking about, or maybe the reasons why you're not looking at your finances. So we're going to talk about past, we're going to talk about present, we're going to talk about future. Okay. So let's talk about the past first. So clearly there was something that happened in your life, or something that you're afraid to look at your finances because of past experiences you've had with looking at your finances. Okay. And I can totally the unknown. But if you're walking out and you see water, I think what times we think is that the water is, a mile deep, but we take a step in it and it's an inch deep. And you're like, oh, like I'm not going to drown in this. Right. And it's sort of this mindset of like taking the leap of faith almost to like, okay, this is uncomfortable for me and I just need to kind of keep going. And we just can't let past decisions impact our future and impact our present. Uh, the past is the past, and mistakes happen, and it's hard when big events happen, and it's hard not to think about that. But almost staring at that situation right in the face and being like, this is not going to impact the rest of my life. The one thing or the events of things that have led to the situation where I am in my finances isn't going to impact the rest of my life. And I like to think of the past as, okay, so we've all driven a car, right? How come they make the windshield as big as they do and the rear view mirror as small as they do, right? The rear view mirror is like this, the windshield's like this freaking big, right? Imagine if you tried to drive a car while looking at the rear view mirror, you would eventually crash your car. Like eventually. Like sure you could have like, you'd be looking at it, you can kind of see like peripheral what's going on, but you'd eventually crash the car. Why? Because you're looking at the stuff that's going on behind you and you're not even focusing on the things that are in front of you. And that's why the windshield is so big. It's like look at what's in front of you, right? Because the rear view mirror is meant to like see the things that you're passing in life, not staring at the things that are holding you back. Okay? So that's a nice little thought process that I kind of heard recently, and I was like, oh, I like that a lot because it's so true. It's like so many people are focused on past things, but then if you add an analogy like that car thing into it, it's like, oh yeah, well obviously I'm not going to drive a car and looking at the rearview mirror, so why would I drive my life looking at the past, right? So whatever you're trying to conquer, and if you're willing to share this, if you're live with me now or you're watching this later, like what's something that's holding you back and why you haven't gotten started. And this is a judgment free zone, right? This is completely judgment free. It's just to figure out like what is holding you back, because at the end of the day I just legitimately want to help people get some traction in their personal finances and start making things happen. Because again, like all the stuff that I'm going to talk about, it's truly changed my life. If I was doing what I was doing, we'll call it 11 years ago, when I was doing nothing with my finances, I'd be a no one right now. I'm still a no one, but you know what I mean? Like I would have not reached financial goals. I would still be, just waiting for the next check so I could pay for all the stuff. I would still be in, tens of thousands of dollars of debt because I was only making minimum payments and I was not trying to uh I didn't see a bigger vision, right? So that's what I'm trying to hope I can change for you. And if we don't learn from our mistakes, they're just going to control us. And I've learned that. Um, but really, like if we look at the past, things that happen to us negatively or positively, we should just learn from them because they're only a problem if we just keep making them a problem. But if we look at it and be like, oh, you know what? My bad on that. And I've learned a lesson, valuable. And I've wasted a lot of time or money or effort or sacrifice trying to figure out this thing. But yeah, I'm not going to do that specific thing that I did previously. Okay. So let's move to some present thoughts. So that was the past. Let's move to some present thoughts. And I think a big reason why, and let me know, obviously if you're live, let me know, or watching this afterwards. The reason why you probably are not budgeting is that you think it's a restrictive action. Is that would you say that that's correct? Would you say that that's accurate? Because a budget, it's not restrictive, and we're gonna dive really deep into this in a second. But a a budget isn't a budget doesn't tell us what we can't do with our money. It tells us what we can do. It shows us what are our available options. What are our resources? I think when people think budget, it's like this massive like swear word for everyone where it's like you can't say it. It's like what's the Harry Potter character like Lord Voldemort? Like, oh, you can't say that guy's name. It's like, oh, we can't talk about budgeting. It's off limits. It's a swear word. Because I think everyone thinks that when you budget, you have to just cut back on everything. Everything budgeting means restriction. It's just not true. Budgeting means intentionality. And I did mention this earlier, but at the end of this, towards the end of this live stream, I'm actually going to show you the tool. I'm going to show you where to find the tool of how I'm helping the people that I'm helping, coaching with their personal finances to face their fear with their finances and start looking at it. I have a specific tool and process that, and I'm going to go through it later on in the live stream. So make sure you stay tuned. But yeah, so that was the first thing. Like budgeting is an action that we take so that we can make the appropriate plans, because what I see all the time is people say that they're budgeting. I talk to people a lot about their personal finances. They say that they're budgeting, and in their mind they're budgeting, but in reality they are either guesstimating in their head. They are either just thinking about the quote unquote like bills in their life. So it's like, okay, I have a car payment, I have utilities I have to pay, I have a rent or mortgage, right? They go through the list of bills and they track those, and that's them thinking like, oh, I'm budgeting, but they're not keeping track of the rest of the stuff that's going on in their life, like all the groceries, the gas, the activities that you do with your friends or family. And those are the things that they estimate, and then they get to the end of the month, they're like, huh, I don't have any extra money again. Like, what happened? And they just think like, oh, I'm like paying my bills on time. I'm living life like I'm not doing anything too crazy. And they just look at it and they think like they should be having more money, and they're not. And it's because they're not. They're half-assing it. So if this is you, if I'm talking to you right now, um, the way we avoid that is we stop half-assing it and we full-ass it, or would it be no assing? I'm not sure, but no more half-assing. Um, we're either all in and we're tracking stuff, we're looking at everything, or we're just not doing it. And I like the idea of doing it personally. Again, it's helped out in my life significantly. And let's talk about the future. This is probably the most important, but the least thought about, because I think again, everyone in their current present, they have demons from the past, right? We all do. There's stuff that happened in our life, whether it's personal finances or not, and they keep us up at night. They random thoughts pop in our head when we're taking a shower or something, or going on a run or reading a book, and it's like, whoa, where did that come from, right? Everyone has that, so I understand that. And then the present, people aren't willing to sacrifice the present for the future. So they're thinking about the past the whole time. They're not even looking at the future. Like your spotlight should be on your future. And this really changed for me because I mentioned in the beginning of this video that I used to just try and feel important and be busy with friends and family and like, have a good time and fill my calendar with fun and things that I like wanted to do now to make myself happy in in the moment now, right? Um, but over the last 10 years, I've completely changed my mindset around that. I used to think in days, in weeks, in months even, like, "Oh, I have that vacation in the summer, that's gonna be really cool." But now I'm literally just thinking in decades. I'm thinking in 5 years from now, I'm thinking in 10 years from now, I'm thinking in 20 years from now, like, the actions that we take today will be a reflection for us in 5, 10, 20 years. Just like the actions you took 5, 10 years ago are now who you are today. So if you don't like today, it's because the version of you from 5, 10 years ago um, wasn't who you wanted them to be. And again, I'm speaking from experience on this, right? I'm looking back at like 10 plus years ago of myself and it's like, dude, like if we had started doing this like way sooner, uh, it would have been a lot better for us. And so I feel like I've been playing catch up, to be quite honest with you. Like everything all shifted for me when I was 25. So I'm 35 now. So if I had started thinking about the future earlier in my 20s or in my teens, like you just think about the present and yeah, it's kind of frustrating looking back. Actually, that could be a maybe that's a demon of mine where it's like, dude, what were you doing? And I got to just focus on the future, right? So we could all take a lesson from like trying to take stuff out of our past. Um, and how I also like to think about it now is people say that like, oh, I don't have enough money to insert, pay down debt, save money, or invest money, or do whatever your goals are, right? Like, oh, I don't have money for it. But every dollar you put towards a financial goal pulls your future one step closer to where you are now. So if you don't so in an extreme example, if you put $0 towards your future, right, nothing's going to happen, obviously, right? And if you put as much as you can, your future's going to be pulled much closer. That's how. So my wife and I, we were in $43,000 worth of debt about 5, 6 years ago now, and we were able to pay that off in 13 months, guys. And we just had regular 9 to 5 jobs. We didn't have to get a second job for one of us or a side hustle or sell any weird stuff that we had in our basement on eBay. It was all just because we were staring at our finances. We were staring at the problem, which at the time was our debt, and we made a plan to make it go away as fast as possible because you're like, you know what? Yes, things will be tight in our finances for a while until this is paid off, but it is going to be tight because we are thinking about our future. And at the time, we were like, oh, we wanted to, we were talking about having kids, like we were pretty serious about that. And we were doing a full audit of our life. It's like, what's the big problem here? And everything just kept going back to like, oh, this debt is a problem because we felt like it was restrictive. Like we were giving our money that we were working for to other people. So it's like, well, it would be much more efficient if we were giving our money to our future self, right? Or now to our kids, right? And like setting something up for them and future education, whatever. And so in the present, we have to think about the future. We can't just think about the present, and we definitely can't think about the past. And you know, the compounding effect is real. It doesn't just everyone online likes to talk about how money compounds, and of course, yes, that's great. There's all this like investing 101 stuff, right? Everyone's talking about compounding, blah blah blah. But it's not just money, guys, that compounds. Yes, that's a very important part of it. But time compounds, your efforts compounds, like your skills compound, the sacrifices that you make towards it all go towards making your future better. So if you sacrifice to today and you focus on one financial goal like intently, right, you're very serious about one financial goal, then I mean how could you fail, right? So the past, the present, and the future, and basically how I started about 10 years ago on this journey. So again, I went to school for accounting. I was telling everyone in my life, including myself, how great I was with numbers and finances and budgeting and you know m- all this stuff, right? Whatever. But in my mid 20s, I had a pretty serious wake up call where I was going to buy a car And the day before, I was like, "Ooh, something hit." I had this like sinking feeling in my stomach. I was like, "Do I have enough money in my bank account to give them the check tomorrow that I told them I was going to give them?" And it's like, "I'm sure I do, right?" I don't know. And I kind of panicked, and I go to my online banking, and I was $1,500 short. And this was like 3 p.m. on a Friday. I was going to give them the check 9 a.m. Saturday. And this was 10 years ago, plus. So I had to kind of scrape together some money where people, uh, like my girlfriend at the time, she's my now wife, she gave me money that I don't know where she pulled it from because I don't think she had it. And I paid her back, but it's like it wasn't going to hit my account in time for the check to clear. Like if they put it through Saturday, it wouldn't have worked. So I went to the dealership and I gave my sob story, right? And I was like, "Can you just like wait till Tuesday, please, to cash this check? Like, I'm good for it. It's just like Tuesday, please, like Tuesday." They didn't love that, but they obviously just let me go off because the pain of having to go through another sale, right, to try and sell this car. And it was like a prior year's model, right? So they're like, just get rid of this thing, and yeah, whatever. So I drove off the lot somehow. I walked in there thinking that I was not going to be able to drive off the lot. So for me, that was like a big shock where I was like, wow. And I would like to think, and let me know, have you guys ever bought a new car? Like what's that feeling like when you're happy about it? Because this was 10 years ago. I haven't bought a car since. And I drove the car home and I was not excited about, driving the car, the features, seeing how fast I could go, whatever. I was just thinking about the mistake I had made and the embarrassment of like not even knowing how much money was in my bank account to the nearest, like, we'll call it $1,500. I didn't even know how much was in there and why. It was like not necessarily a demon of why I wasn't looking at it, but I just like thought I had everything under control. I was like, oh, I went to college for accounting. Like, I know what I'm doing, right? But it's it's a skill I was not very good at, like even personal finances, right? Because obviously that's like a different thing, accounting and personal finance. But I just thought like, oh, I'm good at math and budgeting and money and like I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I got this, right? I didn't have it. So I was driving home. I was like, yeah, I was pretty annoyed with myself, very upset and embarrassed of myself. Like again, these are things that I was telling myself I was good at. And it's like the actions, Chris, that you were taking do not align with the person that you said you are. So I drew a line in the sand and I was like, oh, never again am I gonna like neglect my finances like this. I have to somehow figure out how to do this. So what did I do? Sorry. The first the first problem the problem that I had was not knowing how much was in my bank account. So I was like, you know what? I should probably know how much is in my bank account, right? I should probably figure that out first. So I was like, okay, every day you're going to look at your bank account. So that's what I did it for um 30 days, 30, 40 days. But then I was like, this is great and all, but like, I don't know, I kind of like, is it going up or down? I wasn't really like tracking it. I was just sort of like looking at it, right? Um, and I could tell you how much was in there every day, but I was like, okay, but is it like what's happening with it? Is it up or is it down? Good, bad? Like what's going on? So then I was like, okay, let me see like after every week, like what the deal is. Or I think I did it after every paycheck. That way I could get a better sense. It was like, all right, every paycheck, every 2 weeks, I'm still gonna look every day, but I'm gonna kind of track what number it's at and I'm gonna write it down. And it's like, well, this is great and all, but like, how do I know if I'm being like that efficient with my finances? How like where's my money going? How are my expenses laid out? And that's kind of how I really started, we'll call it like traditional budgeting, right? So I had this like free, it was rinky dinky app. I don't even remember the name of it. It was not very good, but it was free and it was the only like one in the app store I could find that was free. So I was like, whatever. So I downloaded it and every time I made a purchase, I, would get back to the car or if I did something online, whatever, and I just wrote it down. I was like, okay, groceries, $100, whatever it was. Wrote it down, and then I would monitor it and see what was going on, and then it started like creating some trends, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is happening, and in these months of the year, this goes up or this goes down, right? So you started getting a really, really good idea of what's happening with your finances and the surprises that come up, right? Because we all have unexpected expenses, but when you keep having unexpected expenses, they're not unexpected. So make a plan for that, and we could talk about that in a second. But um, yeah, and then so that little budgeting process then turned into, well, what if I really like weaponize my income and use my income to align it with the goals that I have, and I focus on the goals and not like my life? Because again, I was like focusing on my life and not the financial goals. It was like it was going through the month, just paying for stuff. Like okay, at the time I think we were renting, so it was like okay, rent check, okay, bills, okay, grocery, and you get to the end of the month and you're like, oh crap, like okay, I'm like kind of breaking even here. Like what's going on? So everything changed for me when I started to prioritize the goals, and then that way, like, so if you break it out into a good budgeting strategy that I like to think of is what's called the 50-30-20 budgeting strategy. So this says that 50% of your income goes towards need items, 30% goes towards want items, and 20% goes towards financial goals, which is cool. And by the way, I don't have a percentage on this, but if you are doing 20% of your income towards a financial goal, you are a top financial, personal finance person in the United States and the world, quite honestly, because there's not many people that are doing that. Um, and I'll get into why, right? I think there's two reasons why. First, because I was guilty of this too. We kind of just bucket all of our expenses. We bucket our need items and our want items, and it's just like, here's our stuff, right? It's all just all of our expenses. Here's the month. Like, here it is. I paid for everything. But breaking it out really, really helps. Like, really helps. Because then you know, okay, what do I need to live on? And that's an important distinction. Like, you have to be very honest with yourself about what a need item is and what a want item is. So what do I need to live on? Like that's like pretty non-negotiable. Yes, you could probably move to a cheaper area in your country or, down the block, a cheaper neighborhood, whatever. But like in theory, your need items, they're probably not going to change that much, right? Like that's it's harder to change those. So then it's like, okay, so if this is my dollar amount of need items and I make this, then I have this gap of expenses left for the month. So if I prioritize the financial goals first, then I know for a fact that I'm going to be reaching them faster. So what we would do is we would like literally like auto invest or auto pay, our financial goals. That way it's like we weren't running out of money at the end of the month and it's like, ooh, oops, I didn't, do the thing that I said I told myself I was going to do. So in one point of our lives it was, we didn't have much like savings, so it was like, okay, let's just like get some money built up here. So that turned out to be like a little emergency fund. And then it was okay, we got to figure out the debt part. So we would like auto pay the minimums, and then my wife and I had a meeting on our couch. Every like the first or second of every single month, we looked at the spreadsheet that we were tracking all of our debt in. It took like a 5, 10, 15 minute meeting, and we just like strategize which debt were going to be the priority. Because at the time we had 12 different loans, 12, yes, you heard that correctly, 12 loans totaling the $43,000. Some of them were hers, some of them were mine, some of them were shared. It was messy. We started this process with two bank accounts, so we each had our own. And then in the middle, we kind of merged and it was coming out of one bank account. So basically, we obviously only had like a limited amount of cash, just like everyone did, right? Of money every month. So it was like we didn't want one person to over apply to the debt that they like weren't supposed to, and then the other person applied a lot too, and then we like were in the negative because two people like were aggressive and we didn't communicate. So it was really important. It was like, okay, this month it's going to be your thing. The next few months until we get that off, pay that off, and then it's going to be my thing. We're gonna right. So that's kind of how we worked it. It's just really like being organized and transparent and everything like that. So yeah, that's just basically like a quick synopsis of the journey. So that's why all this is so important. Because again, if I was just sitting, if I would wake up, look at my bank balance, and then close the app and then do nothing, that's what I was doing 10, 11 years ago. So you have to kind of keep evolving. And I don't want you to hear from me. It's like, oh, this guy, is an accountant. He's a net worth millionaire. He only has a mortgage. He doesn't have other debt. And I feel like, and I don't want you to feel like you're like, less of a personal finance person. You don't look at where I am now. Look at what I was doing when I started this. And that's why I like to share these like stories. that are still like painful to to think about and go back because it's like, oh, dude, like what were you doing? So I tell these stories because I want you to do what I would did back in the day. And that doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, I just check my bank account and I'll be all good. So whatever your pain point is, just do that thing first. Just do it. You don't have to like optimize it. You don't have to get crazy with it. Just I literally didn't know how much was in my bank account, guys. So that's why I was like, I need to know how much is in here. So that's what I started with. So for you, it's if it's like I don't know, like, oh, I for some reason I can't like save money. I keep trying to save money. I can't. I would challenge you then if you don't think you can save money to figure out a way to start saving something, just literally anything. Okay, so I was working with someone on his personal finances. He gets paid weekly, and he doesn't really have a savings, and his bank account, his checking account, like at the end of the month, is really close to zero every month. Let me know if you can relate to that too. And so he's like, I don't know what to do. Like, so we started the budgeting process, and I was like, okay, you get paid weekly. Here's what I recommend you doing. So you can just start the habit. Can you commit that every paycheck you're going to put $25 into your savings account? And he looked at me. He's like, oh, I can do that because that doesn't sound that hard, right? But at the end of the month, he's going to have $100 saved, and he's never had savings before, like to speak of. So it's like, how do you start the habit? Like, you don't have to talking about emergency funds, it's like, if you were to look up like, "Oh, how much money do I need to have in my emergency fund?" You would see all these articles about how experts say 3 to 6 months of your, expenses should be in your emergency fund. And while that's great advice, guys, if you've never saved before and then you look at how much you spend every month, you're like, "Wow, I need to save 10 to $30,000 to have a proper emergency fund." And that's like super overwhelming. If you have $0 saved and you've never saved anything, super overwhelming. Like, how am I supposed to save tens of thousands of dollars? Like you're like that would take years for so many like years, right? So it's like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm just like, and you kind of toss it aside. But if you build up the habit first, so I challenge you. And I don't know what your pay, your pay structure is. If you get paid weekly, biweekly, monthly, whatever the thing is, but how can you figure out a way to save something? Can you save $100 a month? If you get paid weekly, can you save $25 a paycheck? If you get paid biweekly, can you save $50 a month? If you have a variable income, which is always a little trickier, but you can still plan for that. Like, okay, can you just start small with that? Can you save um, a percentage based on how much you get? So, like, can you save, I don't know, half a percent every time you get paid? Right? Like, you do the math where it's like, how can I set myself up to create small wins in my personal finances? Because personal finance is hard, guys, and it's all about just how do I keep staying motivated on the thing. So if you found that you get on the treadmill, not the literal treadmill, but the personal finance treadmill, and then you instantly get off, it's like you haven't dangled a good enough carrot in front of you to want to keep running on the personal finance treadmill. So how do you create a goal, or how do you create a process that actually makes it fun and you try to win in your personal finances? Okay, so one example for that, and then we're actually going to dive into the tool that I wanted to talk to you about. My wife and I, so for years we've been doing this, and it's worked out so well. Okay, we organize our finances in a way where we get 24 wins in our personal finances every single month, and we set it up intentionally like this so that way we can basically put more money towards future financial goals. Okay, here's what we do. For most people, the biggest expense in their life is going to be the roof over their head, right? Your rent or your mortgage. For most people, that's going to be it. For us, we have a mortgage, and it comes out in the beginning of the month. So my wife and I both have 9 to 5 jobs still. We get paid in the beginning of the month. We get paid in the middle of the month. And when the mortgage comes out, we get a paycheck. So let's just call it the first of the month. The mortgage comes out of our bank account, but the two checks go in, and those two checks that go into our bank account are higher than our mortgage. So that's a win. And then in the middle of the month is when we get paid again. So all of our expenses are we use credit cards for 99.9% of all of our transactions. I think there's one utility that we can't use a credit card for. But we pay off all the credit cards in the middle of the month when we get paid again. So all of our other life expenses get put on credit cards. They come out of the bank. We'll call it the 15th, but our checks go in the bank on the 15th, and those two checks are higher than the credit cards. So it's another win. So that's 1 month we have wins, and then we obviously we have money left over in our bank account from the month, and we apply it towards the next important financial goal. Right now, it's we're putting money towards our kids' future education. We're putting more towards, yeah, like our retirement. We have different sort of accounts, whatever. That's not really my channel's not really about like investing or anything like that. So I don't want to get too much into that. But like, how do you create a situation in your finances that you could just it's an auto process, right? Where you're just like creating wins. So really it's like we have extra money in the beginning, we have extra money in the middle, and then that money goes towards a financial goal. And that's just like it's a really boring process, guys, but it works. Like we're not trying to get rich quick here. Again, we're talking in decades. So it's like, what process are we going to want to do to be able to get to where we want to go in 10 years from now? It's really important to us. So find a way to get wins in your personal finances. So everyone's situation is going to be a little different. And I would only recommend the credit card one if you uh, do not have it's just a way we organize our finances. Like you can do it however you want. And I wouldn't recommend the credit card thing if you're in like a ton of debt already, or if credit cards are a problem, or spending is a problem where it's like you don't think you're going to be able to keep up with the checks over the spending, right? So, you do you. But just be warned, like this process might not be for everyone. It's just what we are doing. And just like most things, like credit cards, I'm not against credit cards. I'm not, I'm not, I don't have an extreme example or extreme take on debt. I'm not like all in on debt. Like, yes, you have to use leverage, leverage, leverage. Like, yeah, because that's what like the whole real estate world is, right? You leverage debt, and that can get kind of messy if you don't know what you're doing. And I'm not an expert on like, real estate, whatever. I'm not, but then there's the other side with like Dave Ramsey, and it's like, oh, absolutely no debt, no credit cards. And like, I get it to a point, but like, why can't we just meet somewhere in the middle? Because I think extreme, top being an extremist on any topic isn't probably the best thing anyway. Um, so yeah, I think somewhere in the middle is good. You just kind of have to know yourself. And if you don't know yourself, then maybe just don't use credit cards until you know yourself. Okay. So that's just a little caveat. So I mentioned that I have a online community completely do just that, right? Build the foundation of their finances, unlearn their terrible money habits. We all have them. I still have bad money habits. Okay. So it's never you never like finish the process. You always just kind of keep learning a new thing. And the end goal of this community is to build your financial foundation so that you can apply more money to pay off your debt more efficiently. And it's basically the process that my wife and I did, like basically to a T, with better tools. And more information. Now that I'm helping more people, it's like, oh, what are the things that are working with most people? And I try to implement that working with new people. Again, everything in here is completely free, guys, including my time. So if you sign up today, you're going to guarantee a free strategy call with me, because I'm taking free calls with new members in here, trying to get you started and figure out how I can help you the most. And since we're talking about like budgeting and staring fear in the face, I actually had a perfect I guess we'll call it like a little testimonial here today from Janine. Okay. And she wrote, getting control with simple tasks. I'm about to finish. I'm about to finish up my first month while using Chris's budget spreadsheet, and I actually feel like I have control and knowledge around my finances. Although not perfect, I am no longer burying my head guesstimating where my money is and where it is going. I feel like having him help those financial demons of months past gave me clarity and allowed me to take the first steps to begin creating freedom and wealth. I'm so grateful for you and your approach. I've worked with 3 other financial people and have not gotten this far in the process. 1 credit card paid off and just 4 more to go just in the first month. No more financial messiness and an organized plan to stay on task and aware. Chris kept it so simple by breaking down the process into small, achievable tasks with accountability. So grateful to have found someone who actually makes it make sense. Okay. And you can't make this up. Like, I literally had this live stream planned for today. And then this, Janine came through with a really nice message here. And I just wanted to share this because it's so topical to the conversation we were talking about today. Um, where because she literally talks about, I feel like having him help those financial demons of months past, like it's literally what we were talking about earlier in the live stream, right? Like, we all have them. Janine had them, and we were working together. Yeah, it was a month, and she took action. She knew what she wanted. She just didn't know how to get there, so she took action, and she's been crushing it, guys, with action, and it's been really, really exciting to see. So, um, this is Dollar Discipline University again. The link for this is down in the description of this video. And again, I'm taking free strategy calls with everyone that joins. And since we're still pretty new, depending on when you're watching this, like, I've been helping people for free until they kind of get their bearings with everything. So it's like, yeah, you get the strategy call, but then you're also getting like possibly, some of these people I've met with 5, 6 times. Like, I just want to help people, and it's all been for free. And so if you're watching this soon, like, and my calendar is still available, I just want to help as many people as I can until my calendar is just completely stupid and just completely booked up. So that's kind of what I want you to do. I want you to, like, make my calendar just be unreasonable. Just completely book me up. It's completely free. Like, my time is free right now, and I want to help everyone. So that is the community. So we're going to go into the budget template, the tool that I was talking about. Okay. And the thing that Janine brought up, which was awesome. We're going to do this process now too. Okay. I'm going to make this a little bigger. Sorry, guys. Cool. That's fine. So this is the budget template. And before you kind of get into the budget, and we're going to talk about it in a second, what you have to do first is what's called the 3-month look back. And what this is, if the name isn't obvious, is you look 3 months prior to right now of your finances. So I'm recording this in February. So this process wants you to look at your November expenses, your December expenses, and your January expenses. And the whole point of this is, one, to face any demons that you have, and just start looking at it. And if 3 sounds really intimidating, 3 months, start with 1, right? It's just like the saving example. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to save $10,000 for your emergency fund tomorrow, but, like, could you save 25 next week? Yeah, right? So just start with something. And yes, this will mean that you have to look at however you spend money. So your bank statement, your credit card statement, however you spend money, that's what needs to go on here. And we want to track our variable expenses. So think things like groceries, gas, utilities, etc. Right? Things that change every month, but that we buy every month or almost every month. So we would not really want to put like our housing here, like rent or mortgage, because unless that's changing all the time, it's probably not. We just want to look at the things that are changing, because all the fixed expenses, we know what they are, right? So even like something as small as your, Netflix subscription, whatever, we know what those are. If you want to include them here, it's obviously you can absolutely do that. There's plenty of space here for as many categories as you want. You can change these categories to your liking. And this budget template, actually, you can find inside of Dollar Discipline University. So that's how you get access to it. And everything's completely free, guys. So I'm not trying to take anyone's money. I just genuinely want to help people. That's all. Like, and get another message like how Janine said. Like, I just want to help people, and then have those people say like, "Hey, he can actually help," and get more of you guys in there. The reason why we want to look at this 3 months is it's a pretty good sample size of like, okay, what are our trends, right? Like what's actually happening in our finances. So we get an average. So these 3 months, we total it here, we get the average. And then we can look at, okay, each expense category here, each variable expense category, here's our actual spending for each category. A lot of people, once they see this, there's one, two, three categories where they're like, whoa, like I had no clue I was spending this much in, insert expense category. Spoiler alert, most of the time it is like dining out, food delivery, etc. People are always shocked at how much they spend. And it's true, it really sneaks up on you. This is something that, my wife and I had a problem with too. Um, so yeah, we do that. We go through, find the averages. And then the whole reason why we want to do that is now we want to say, okay, is our spending aligned with our financial goals? Right. And a lot of times, if you're just doing this for the first time, it absolutely will not align with your financial goals. Okay. And that's where we have to do some sort of thinking and strategizing. Like, how do we realign our spending to align? There's a lot of aligns there, but how do we, rework our finances to match our financial goals? And I like to call these your North Star goals. Okay. So, what I want you to do is write on a piece of paper two things, five things, 10 things, however many things, it doesn't matter, of the things in your life that are either the most important things to you or that things that you want to achieve. So it can be a current thing, it could be a future thing, they could be financial stuff, it could be life stuff, whatever's most important to you. Okay. So just to give you an example, like, so my wife and I have two kids. So obviously I would, there'd be a lot of like kid stuff on there, like, you know, um, having fun activities with my kids planned and just trying to keep them busy, especially my toddler, and spending quality time with my wife because again we both have 9 to 5 jobs. Being a parent is hard. I'm doing this as well, so it's like I can't neglect my time with my wife either. I would prefer to not be divorced, right? So it's just like things like that. And then like financial goals for us, it's yeah, like we have a really long-term goal of how can we pay off our mortgage in 10 years. And that's seems very aggressive at the moment, but it's like we kind of want a challenging goal where it's like how do we apply money to it and things like that. So you could think of whatever you want and for that because it's your list. I just to give you like another extreme, like I feel like some of those might have been on the extreme side, but like to look at it from the other side, the less extreme side. I was talking to someone about his personal finances. We were going through his North Star goals. And one of the things on that list for him was he's like, you know what? I get really expensive haircuts every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks. And I've been going to this guy for like 2 decades. He's like basically family. And it's just like a non-negotiable for me. I'm not willing to give it up. And he was telling me as if he was like asking for my permission almost because he the presumption was like, oh, he's like, oh, it's a haircut. Like he was almost thought like I was going to judge him for like wanting to keep doing this expensive haircut, and I was like, no, like I am very happy that you found things that you are making non-negotiables, right? So that's kind of how you have to think about it, but everything can't be a non-negotiable. That's the whole thing. So you have to pick certain things, and then we use those things, the North Star goals, to be like the funnel, the filter through all of our decision making. So it's like, how do we if it's a thing that we want and it makes, a goal happen faster or it's a priority in our life, then yeah, we do the thing. But if we want to buy a thing or do a thing and has no correlation to anything on our list, then maybe we need to revisit that because it's like, well, if we do the thing or buy the thing, then it's negatively impacting or neutrally impacting, one of our future goals. So it's like, do we want to make the sacrifice today for tomorrow? So that's just always what you have to ask yourself. Do you want to sacrifice today for tomorrow? And sometimes it's yes, and that's like it's totally fine. Like it doesn't matter. Again, this is like a judgment free zone. So everyone, every decision in life is a choice. So it's like you can be as intense with this as you want or not as intense with it, but just know that like obviously the more money that you the 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 less money that you spend, the more money that you have. very obvious. But the challenge with that, and I'm just gonna stop sharing for once. I feel like this is important. The challenge with um, what was I talking about? The challenge with being very extreme about it is that it's not going to be sustainable at all, right? So if you think about your personal finances and you think, oh, okay, it's only about cutting, 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 cutting. I can do this. I can do this. Like I'm just going to cut everything. It's going to be great. How long do you think that would be able to last you for? Yes, it would be the most efficient way to pay off, to do the finance thing and put money towards a financial goal faster. But like after a certain period of time, you're just going to get burnt out and you're probably going to like, you know, crater backwards and you're going to like fall off the wagon and it's going to be this big challenging issue. Um, so I think the best way to do it is maybe a slightly slower approach where it's not as extreme, but you're able to sustain it for a long period of time. And it's gonna because you can't go, can't be on for 2 or 3 months and then off for 1 month. Like you can't be budgeting your finances for 2 to 3 months and you're like, nah, I'm just not gonna do it this month. And you do it for another 2 or 3 months. Nah, I'm not gonna do it this month because through December this last year when I was, talking with multiple people, it was surprising, but a lot of people said like, "Yeah, like there's no way I can budget December. Like I already know it's going to be a disaster. I can't budget for December." And it's like, "Well, no, actually, even if you know it's going to be a disaster, we still have to like look at it and plan for it because if you've never budgeted before, especially if you've never budgeted like a holiday season, we'll call it, right? Knowing that this year would be really helpful for next year, like how much you've been spending, right? It just as like a one-off example. So let's share the screen again. We're back in the 3-month look back, okay? So we've gotten our averages, we've looked at our goals and we're like, "Okay, I think we're gonna align our goals with the spending a little better." So that's where this section over here comes in. This is, our new budget with adjustments. And basically what we're gonna wanna do here is after we see what we've been spending on each category, we're gonna create a new amount that we would like to, get to every month. So this will be like a new quote budget amount. That's why we get the average. It gives us a baseline of okay, what's been going on in this expense category, and then we try to just plan for it, in the next month. So there's a couple ways that you could think about this. One, again, to use an example of like, oh wow, I'm spending so much money in this. This is always dining out food delivery for people, but like it could be something different for you. But it's just like the category where that makes you go like, "Whoa, I'm spending way too much here," right? So in the example that I have on the screen here, it's dining out and food delivery. This example is spending $346 a month in this category. So the person, you could look at this and be like, "Wow, I'm spending way too much." So it's like, "Okay, how do I uh this is, convenient food delivery or going to some restaurant isn't aligned. It wasn't on my list. It's not a North Star goal for me. So, how do I kind of realign the spending here to make it happen?" He could be like, okay, well, a non negotiable for me is, we have pizza night twice a month with the kids, and that's going to be about $50, right? Whatever the thing is. And it's like, okay, that part of it's non-negotiable, but the rest of it is just kind of lazy, and we can just totally fix this. So we can just bring the spending down to $50 a month. And then you're like, well, if I'm eating less out, that means I probably need to eat in home more, right? So then it's like, oh, well, I probably need to increase groceries slightly, a little bit to kind of make up for those meals that we ate out with. So have a little more stuff at home. So it's like, okay, maybe I need to increase my groceries from 750 to 800 a month to make this happen. Now, you can see here in this monthly savings column, this is showing you if you're higher or lower than your average. So the red means that you are higher than your average, and the green means that you're lower, right? So you could look at, groceries like, oh man, I had to go up like 40 or $50 here, but then dining out, it's, oh wow, well, I'm saving like $300 a month just by doing this. So the net win here is like $250 on food. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's pretty cool, right? So it's not always just cut, 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 cut. And another example I like to talk about is like health and fitness. Okay. Let's say like on your list, you're like, yeah, I need to like I need to commit to, whatever days at the gym or working out every day or whatever the thing is, right? And then you look at your spending and your time of what you actually do in your life and you're like, "Wow, I'm only spending, I don't know, $60 a month on my health and fitness," but it was one of my top 5 things on my North Star goal list, right? So then it's like, well, let me add more to this category because it's really, really important to me. And then I can kind of trim the fat of other areas, other categories in my finances that I told myself were not as important, right? So I can easily just kind of chop those off because they're not that important. So then you're like, okay, if I sign up for more classes at my gym, right, whatever the thing is, I can go up to like $90. So I'll increase my health and fitness by $30 a month. Um, and I need to spend more here. So I got to figure out other ways to kind of knock it down, right? And you can do it like that. The most important part of this is this column probably because anyone could just say like, "Oh, okay, I'm just going to start spending this amount in this expense category." But if you don't have a reason why you're doing it, it's not going to be sustainable because it's going to feel like the extreme thing that we talked about earlier. It's like if you're not doing it um, for something, then you're just not going to stick with it. So the why is really important, and I would recommend like writing something in here. That way you can kind of see it and you like talk it into existence. Like I need to do this thing because it's a North Star goal, and I don't know, my health is very important, or having more money to pay down my debt is really important. So I want to take it from dining out and food delivery and put that $250 net win towards debt, and I'm going to be able to pay it down way more efficiently. And that's not something that we're talking about in this video, the debt, but I do have some videos on my channel about how impactful just a little extra money of paying your debt down really is. So I would go search for those. Um, I, I I do a lot of those videos, so I'm sure they're not that hard to find. And it's just a little extra money is just so impactful. And this is what I teach inside of Dollar Discipline University. So we go here, we look at this column, and it's like, oh wow, okay. So in total, um, potentially I've saved $266 from my average actual of my, variable expenses. And then I can try to apply that money towards the financial goal that's most important to you. So if it's paying down debt, like paying $266 towards your debt, extra of what you're already doing is going to help out so, so much. So that's basically the 3-month look back. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. We're going to sorry. Basically, the whole message here is like, um, we have been, we are, and we will be a reflection of how we use our resources. So it doesn't matter how much money you make or you don't make, and your personal finances are not up to anyone else except for yourself. So we can't point the finger anymore. You have to look inward and be like, if there's a problem with your personal finances, it's a choice that you've made, even though you think it's someone else's fault. And that might be tough for some people to hear. But if you keep going along the same path and you haven't made a change, then no change was a choice that you made. So just think about that for a second. So if you're saying like, oh, I don't make enough income, my job sucks, my boss sucks, the economy sucks, the president sucks, whatever it is, it's like you're putting power and control into that thing that you say is the problem, when really it's like, well, what have you done to try and fix it? And when I post videos about income, especially, I get a lot of slack, I get a lot of flack for me saying like, hey, you could just like work towards increasing your income. And for some reason that's like, taboo on the internet, where it's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, it's shocking actually, like how much like blowback I get. I'm like, yeah, you're actually in control of your finances and your income. And it's just like people are like, wow, I there's no jobs, blah blah blah. And I get it, like I get it. Looking for a job is very, very challenging sometimes, and especially depending on where you are, there might not be a lot of jobs available. But you're in charge, guys. You're in charge. You're responsible. And no matter what, like we are in control of the good things that happen in our life, financially or otherwise, the bad things that happen in our life, financially or otherwise, and the ugly. So even the things that we like we just want to go away, if it's our life, it's our responsibility. That's how we have to start thinking about this. So if your challenge is you don't think you make enough income, it's like I challenge you to figure out a way to change that. Like, how can you learn a new skill? How can you make yourself more valuable at your current workplace? How can you start doing something like at night or like in the morning before your day job and like trying to build up something else where it's like, okay, I have like a stable job here. I'm just going to stay here as I'm working on this and try to move to the next thing in my life, which is like creating, I don't know, maybe like you're creating a business or you're going to help people. And it's just like, how do you work towards that? Because that's the only way that your income's going to increase is if you actually put action towards it. Okay. So that's it, guys. I do, thank this far. Thank you very much. First of all, this is Dollar Discipline University. Again, link is down in the description of this video. And if you've made it this far, like you're very serious about making a change, listening for me ramble for almost an hour. So I love meeting people like you. So if you're still watching, I would love to have you in here again. It's completely free, including my time. You get the free strategy call. As for these live streams, guys, I'm going live every Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, which is like right after bedtime for my kiddos. So if you're watching this now or later on, like let me know what topics you want me to talk about on these live streams. I'd love to, talk about a topic, get, some interactive active stuff going on in here, some questions, whatever, because I'm making things that I think can help you guys or I think you guys need or want. But I would rather make things that you guys tell me that you want or like just challenges that you're having. It's like, how can I help you solve a challenge, a problem that you're having in your life? Like those are the things that I, really, really look for. So school.com/debt. It's down in the description of this video. I will see you in the next one, guys. Have a good one.